Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is going to be a quick review on week two lecture of the 152 course, and in that lecture the doctor talked about how to move the audience, or how to use the logos and ethos and pathos and the additional fourth kairos. So before I start, this video is going to be in full English. There is going to be another video uploaded in full Arabic. So because there are some people who enter the 152 course who are not native in English, and that's totally normal, nothing to be ashamed of. So to help everyone as much as I can, I'm gonna make two videos, this one in English and another one in full Arabic. So we start with the definition of the ethos and pathos and logos. If someone uses pathos, for example, that means they want to engage the audience sympathy and emotions and make them move with them. They want to use the sympathy of the audience as an advantage in their speech. For example, if they use the ethos, the ethos mainly focuses on the tone or the perceived image of the writer or the speech giver. Like if someone important, extremely like a political figure, is giving a speech, I will immediately have respect for him, listen carefully to him, etc., etc. If a huge doctor or a famous doctor who did many research on a certain topic speaks and I know of his research, I will immediately be engaged in his talk or speech and have respect toward his words and focus on them. So that is the ethos. We have the logos, which is related to the logic. Using the logos means that the writer or the speech giver will draw your attention by using logical thinking, statistics, research, facts, etc., etc., opinions from experts. A lot of things can be used in logos. And just one small hint before I go on to the next slide, and I think it's gonna be quite useful in the coming in you writing your both of your essays. Using the ethos, the pathos, and the logos will make your essay or what you're talking about be projected on the audience. So by using those three elements, you will help yourself or help the audience understand the topic more, understand what you are talking about and what you need from them to understand. First, we will start with the logos. And the logos, as I said before, it is the persuasive use of evidence, like how logical is the writer or the speech giver is being, and how much logic or facts or statistics is he using in his speech. So if we go on in how we could use the logos, we need two things. We need the evidence that we're going to use in our speech or writing. And to use correct evidence, you need a lot of things. You need documented expert opinions, for examples, research, facts, correct statistics. Let's focus on that, and correct numbers in general, and of course the star criteria. We have many types of evidence, so we are going to start with the anecdotal evidence. Sorry if I spelled that wrong. And that type of evidence is stories that form a connection. Let's say that I'm talking about deforestation. I'm going to mention a story where a researcher and his wife rebuilt a forest over the course of 40 years, etc., etc. That's a true story that happened, first of all, and after it happened, it formed a good connection with what I'm talking about, which is deforestation. We have this testimonial evidence, and testimonial evidence is the direct opinions of experts. And let's focus correct testimonial evidence or quotes from someone need to be from a good expert, not some kind of fraud or someone who's scamming you. No, an actual expert in their field. We have statistical evidence, and in general it means numbers that matter. like different statistics on what affects people moods, or what color when people see like, and that will be extremely useful to companies, for example, or statistics that show the level of crime in some countries that do this and some countries that don't do this, etc., etc. And let's focus on something like statistics can be easily faked in the middle of a conversation, so be careful, because every type of evidence that I'm talking about here is a double-edged weapon. Like, it can be really good in some points and really bad in some other points, especially if they are not strong enough. We have textual evidence, and that is support from other writing, and that is what you're mainly gonna do for people who are like entering science and technology. That is what you're mainly gonna do in the lab, the bio lab assignment, where you're gonna search for the questions and the assignments in a research paper and paraphrase what's in the research paper, the answer that you found, and cite the research paper of the author, because that is the writing and that is the meaning of textual evidence. You're using other people's info or writing to support your own point, and you absolutely need to cite them. We have analogical evidence, and it's kind of a weak kind of evidence, which is a comparison with a known situation. And we like consider analogical evidence quite weak, because it isn't like something that will convince a lot of people, because when comparing, you're only showing one side of two things. So if you want, let's say, if you want analogical evidence to be strong, you need to compare the good side and the bad side of both things that you are talking about. And that is why I said that every type of evidence that I'm going to talk about is a double-edged weapon. We have hypothetical evidence. From its name, and I think like people who are in science and technology, science and engineering, took the scientific method, was the first lecture in the Bio 101 course, and they studied the scientific method, which heavily depends on making a hypothesis. And hypothetical evidence is enough detail to seem real. Like, someone will say, in the year 2050, the population of the Earth will be some random number. Did they cite anyone? Did they use opinion from experts? No, they hypothesized because of what's happening right now, like in Japan and China, from the low birth rates in some countries and high birth rates in some countries. There is an imbalance in birth rates in general in the world. So they hypothesized by the year 2050, 2060, birth rates are gonna be near zero in some countries, and some even countries or races are gonna go extinct. We are starting with the first kind of evidence, which is anecdotal evidence, which is stories that form a connection. Let's focus on something like anecdotal evidence are pretty catchy kind of evidence. So they are mainly used like a hook in the first of a literature review, in the start of a research paper, in the start of a speech, in the start of an essay. They are usually used as a hook in the introduction of something that is written or a speech. To grab the writer's attention, and that is the use of anecdotal evidence. It's either it's a story, like you experience, or a story from another person. And let's focus on something. It's not a strong type of evidence because it is the retelling of something that happened to one person or a few people. So that makes it a weak type of evidence, because it's not something that happens often to most people. So we don't consider it a strong type of evidence. But like I said, it works as a good hook, so it helps make a connection with the readers. And that connection is very important, of course, to make the readers trust you or to grab the reader's attention. We have some examples of anecdotal evidence, which are like, for example, interviews with someone who tells the story related to your thesis. Either it's about like something scientific or something, for example, in engineering, a personal experience related to the topic that you're talking about. And that is like, you're gonna use a lot of anecdotal evidence in the icebreaker speech, in the like speech part of this course. We have a case study from a journal or your own research, like you are using studies from or a case study, you're using someone who studied something on someone else in your story, or something from your own research. and we have a story or an excerpt, I hope I said that correctly, from a journal or a letter or something like that. We have the second type of evidence, which is testimonial evidence. Like I said, opinions of expert. Just like in courts or like cases that happen in courts or different kind of cases, bringing an expert or an opinion of an expert can add a huge advantage to you, because when you bring an opinion from an expert in a certain field and you want to like make a good point, it will add a huge, like I said before, advantage, and their opinion is seen as above questioning, because it's better to get like the info from the source itself, which is an expert at some kind of field. And you can use it in a lot of things. You can use it in your essays, you can use it in your research, you can use it, etc., etc. And you can use your testimonial evidence, of course, in your topic sentences or support topic sentences in your paragraphs. Like if you want to start your paragraphs with something strong, for example, you start with a quick quote from someone or some scientist about hope or about studying or about progress, etc., etc. It helps establish like a good base for your essay or paragraph. And we have some examples for testimonial evidence that someone might use: direct interviews with experts in the topic, or quotes, like I said, from an expert's book, paper, or newspaper editorial, like quoting the person directly; conclusions from essays written by experts, like citations from different research paper, or your own specialized knowledge if you have the credentials or experience to support it. Like if you are yourself an expert, you can state your own opinion about a certain topic that you are an expert in. We have the third type of evidence, which is statistical evidence, which means numbers that matter. Statistics is like an extremely powerful form, or like a considerably powerful form of evidence. Especially, let's focus on that, I will repeat it again, especially if they come from good sources. So you can use statistics as a type of support in writing if that statistics or numbers are related to your thesis or the essay that you are writing, especially shocking statistics, like statistics that no one knows about or no one looks after, or someone thinks that this certain topic will have a certain statistic, but it comes out like in a way that you don't expect. So it will help capture the reader's attention in your introduction and immediately make them immersed in the experience or the essay. And let's focus on something. Like I said, statistics are good and powerful if they come from good sources. So good sourcing is the key factor in using statistical evidence, because if it's not from like a good source, it's easy to refute and easy to prove wrong. So focus on that part. And there are some examples for statistical evidence, of course, like numbers that you got from your own research and your own experiments, or numbers from personal experience. And if you have sources for these personal experience, or other people like experienced it, and percentages, like different percentages for some certain topic from different sources, or government supported sources of reports, like let's say the COVID-19 numbers. These are government supported resources from the WHO, the World Health Organizations. And let's say that you measured the length of something, and that something is quite normal. Like a normal average door will have a length of let's say 30-40 centimeters. I don't know the length of the door, but let's say that's the average. So it is known and it can be used easily because it's a known number. We have the fourth type of textual evidence we have the fourth type of evidence in general, which is textual evidence, which is support from other writing. And if you're writing about a certain topic, a certain book, a certain play, a certain research, you need like types of different evidence from other books or other experts to support it. And when using that type of textual evidence, like let's say a research, a literature review, a paper, you need to mention the page number, and you need to also mention some information about the author, the first name and the last name, and the link of the research, and there is if there is like an ID for the research itself, and you need to mention of course the link of the website, etc., in your textual evidence or in your citation. And that is what you're most going to do in the bio lab, this term for people who are entering science and engineering. So, and there are some examples like direct quotations from books or other text sources, that you will mention the page number and the name of the book and the name of the author, accurate summaries of what happened or was said in the text, and that means paraphrasing. And that is what I know I'm repeating it a lot, that you're going to use it in the bio lab, but that is what's actually going to happen, and it might help you a bit. And we have larger passages that directly relate to your thesis or your essay, which means like there is something mentioned in a certain book, so you will mention that thing with paraphrasing of course, and you will cite it to, because it helps strengthen your essay, or it will help you like put more words and put more meaning in your essay. And like I said before, paraphrases of what an author says in a text, and that like summarizes the whole like textual type of evidence. We have like the fifth or the sixth type of evidence, because I just lost count. Analogical evidence, which is comparison with a known situation. Like I said when I was like telling you about the types of evidence, it is one of the weakest types of evidence in writing, because analogical evidence compares something that it is not very well known to something that is known. And like that definition of analogical evidence doesn't mean it is always weak. Analogical evidence can be used in a way to be quite strong. So to make it an effective type of support in writing, you need to make a strong case for the similarities in like both known things, and you need to identify it, to make a definition for the things that you are identifying, and you need to mention all the similarities and not leave anything out. And why am I telling you that, to not leave anything out? Because some people, when they compare one thing to another, they don't mention everything to make their point seem more right. So be careful about that when using analogical evidence. And we have some examples of analogical evidence. A peer-reviewed study that is similar in many ways to the topic in your essay, like you found a study that is like quite perfect for the essays that you're writing. So that's analogical evidence. An expert opinion about something very similar, of course, like analogical evidence depends on something being very similar and using it to your advantage. So be careful about using analogical evidence and use it wisely. A course case or historical evidence that is very similar, of course, and statistics from a journal or a direct research that is also very similar to your related to your topic, but it's not exactly the same. Like it's something just to add some flavor in your topic. So be careful about using analogical evidence. We have the last type of evidence, which is similar to the first type, the hypothetical evidence, enough detail to seem real. The hypothetical evidence is similar to the anecdotal evidence, which is the story that relates to your topic. But the real difference, the main and the obvious difference, that the anecdotal difference is the stories that actually happened from past experience, and the hypothetical evidence is like you are stating that hypothetically, if like my research is true, if this continues, if like the icebergs, for example, continue to melt, like some countries on the shore are going to sink underwater, and that will happen if the icebergs continue. So that is the hypothetical evidence, enough detail to seem real. And some examples for hypothetical evidence: a story about what would happen if your thesis were true, and I said that like a short while ago. A story to go with a statistic from a good source, like you are using a random story and using a statistic related to that the hypothetical story to make it seem like a good and like believable story. And an imaginary event that would trigger an action related to your thesis. Like I said, the iceberg melting will lead some countries on the shores to be underwater, and that will happen if it continues, but it might not continue. The earth might blow up, for example, I don't know. And if you have noticed, I said the earth might blow up, for example. I don't know. That is a form of use of hypothetical evidence, so focus on that part. We have something that the doctor talked about like in detail in this lecture, but I'm gonna like go over it again, which is the STAR criteria. What is the STAR criteria? So a lot of us might not know what the STAR criteria is, but a lot of us as readers or listeners expect the STAR criteria without even noticing it. Like STAR criteria is a short word for sufficiency, which means enough evidence is proposed. Typicality, the evidence that is proposed relates to the topic. Accuracy, the evidence that is proposed is accurate and from good sources, not from weak sources or made up. And the relevance of these evidence, that the evidence that I'm mentioning are related to the topic that I'm talking about, which is similar to typicality but not the same, and like I'm not making a long shot to use that type of evidence. We have sufficiency of evidence, which is the amount of evidence needed depends on the target audience. Like there are some topics where you don't need a lot of evidence because it's a known topic and it's like everything about it is quite known in the audience. So you don't need to use a lot of evidence. And there is like an ambiguous topic, a new topic that you like. If I say, for example, personalized medicine, most of you are not going to know about personalized medicine, but actually the personalized medicine was my TEDx when I was in the 152 course, and I had to like bring a whole research paper to use in that TEDx, like a whole clean research paper to use in that TEDx, and I used a lot of it. So I needed a sufficient amount of evidence because people didn't know about anything about personalized medicine. And let's say too little evidence sometimes may lead to a hasty generalization, because like I said, personalized medicine, once you hear the word, and I'm gonna say to you that personalized medicine is a type of medicine in the future that you are gonna make a certain cure for a certain patient. You are gonna generalize it immediately. I'm gonna say, oh, so that means that very rare diseases that come to only certain people can be cured immediately. That's so great. Actually, no. Personalized medicine means like there is a data bank for a patient, a certain patient, with like the genetic code, the past experiences in like medical history, etc., etc., and that will help the doctor find a cure personalized for them better. Not like all cures. They will not find a magic cure for everything. No, they will just help with the efficiency of finding a cure. And that is like an example of sufficiency and hasty generalization. And we have the example that the doctor like used with someone says, according to Sanjay Gupta, the new surgeon and CNN's chief medical correspondent, marijuana has some legitimate medical applications. Like, that is not sufficient at all in any way, shape, or form, because like a logical audience will know what is the medical applications, what are the side effects of this marijuana, etc., etc. Like, I need more information to know what it is actually like legitimate to legalize or not. We have the second type, thing in the STAR criteria, which is the typicality of evidence. Typicality of evidence means the evidence must be typical and representative rather than extreme instances, because some people prefer to do something like this picture here. It says something called cherry picking. Like they pick like a certain type of situations that happened very rarely or with very few amount of people, and oh yes, this is very good evidence, use it. That is not a good type of evidence like at all, because extreme examples are not generalized with everyone. You need to use correct examples that many people will happen to many people, or many people experience before. You can't cherry pick, because that is a wrong use of evidence. And to like save time on this example says that someone said that working a full-time job with full-time college can work, because one of his friends worked as a full-time receptionist at night and had a night shift, and she got straight A's. That kind of evidence, he cherry-picked that evidence, because not all full-time job like have time shifts, and working as a receptionist like makes more time available for studying while at work, and some other work doesn't, like McDonald's, working at a fast food chain, etc., working as like a dishwasher in a restaurant. You can't have that time to study in these kind of jobs. So that is like a clear example of cherry picking. And we have the known example of trying to legalize marijuana so hard. Someone is saying that they have medical research and 6%, let's focus on that again, investigated the potential benefit of the drug. Like, my main man, that is like the epitome of cherry picking evidence. So be careful about that, everyone. And we have the third kind of the star criteria, the third part of it, which is the accuracy of evidence. Using accurate and up-to-date evidence is extremely essential, especially in research, or like in my major, the biomedical science major. Using up-to-date evidence is extremely essential, and plus, accurate evidence adds up to the writer's credibility, because if the writer uses like new evidence, that means that the writer is an honest writer and I can trust him and read what he wrote comfortably. Like, we go back to the example of what? The marijuana. For the most part, it was widely used as medicine and spiritual purposes during pre-modern times. And who said that? Worf. And Worf is a professor of geography. Let's focus on that. Geography at the University of Kansas of Lawrence. And he said that the Viking and Germans used cannabis for relieving pain during childbirth or for toothaches. He said, like, he is a professor of geography, not like someone who's an expert in organic chemistry or chemistry in general. No, he's in geography, and he's saying during pre-modern times, like before people knew what painkillers are in general, or what a cell was in general. So that is like the epitome of not using accurate evidence at all. And we have another one, which is a scientific study of the chemicals marijuana, and has led to 2 FDA approved medications that contain the material in marijuana, as well as cannabinoids. I hope I spelled that right. In pill form. The study was conducted in 1999 by Professor Charles Foreman. And Professor Charles Foreman, once you see Harvard University, you're gonna say, good type of evidence. But there are 2 problems. The 1998 evidence, when used in research papers in general, and you're gonna know that it needs to be at least, at the most part, it needs to be 5 years, it made 5 years ago. Aside from that, it's considered old data, and you need to find newer ones. And Charles Foreman is what? Is a professor of piano at the University of Calgary. So yeah, that is not an accurate evidence at all. And I wanted to mention something funny for the Vikings. They had some type of warriors in the Vikings called berserkers, and the Vikings were extreme in their fights. They used hallucinating mushrooms. They ate it before the fight, and they went on the fight. And hallucinating mushrooms, which contains effects like LSD, actually made the Vikings quite rapid, that even they were hit with arrows or axes, or even some parts of them were cut off, they would continue fighting. So imagine fighting with the best you can, stabbing, throwing arrows, throwing mud, and the guy won't just stop. It planted fear in the enemy's eyes. So they used drugs as a mean of warfare, and that was for the Vikings because they were quite extreme. We have the fourth part of the STAR criteria, which is the relevance of evidence. Relevant evidence in general helps make your argument more persuasive, because if you bring evidence, let's say you're talking about a certain effect of a certain type of drug, and you bring evidence to why is a certain bacteria named like that? What are you doing? You're not proving your point. You are just jumping and making twists and turns to prolong your useless essay or useless research. So be aware of the relevance of your evidence. So let's consider the example. I will summarize it. Someone says that I worked really hard, I deserve an A. So working hard, this is the advice in general. Working hard doesn't mean you deserve an A. You may have worked hard, but in the wrong direction. So you didn't do good on the assessment, the midterm and the final and the quizzes. So your hard work actually was not useful. So be aware of that in college and in life in general. And we have, of course, the last funny example about, of course, it's about marijuana. Why isn't it? Marijuana should be legalized because its prohibition is racist, because marijuana, they think marijuana is a plant that comes from like a certain type, so it has a certain nationality. That is extremely irrelevant. And we move on to the next one, which is the ethos. How the reader or the listener perceives the speaker and the authority that the speaker has on them. Like, let's, for example, Sensodyne is approved by 9 out of 10 dentists. So once you hear 9 out of 10 dentists and they like show you an actual dentist and their name and where they work, etc., etc., that is a good use of ethos. You use a person of authority and you use their honest opinion to like promote your product, like Sensodyne always does. We have the ethos, which is the appeal to credibility. How could a writer or a speaker be credible? Credibility, like trusting a person, is being created by you being knowledgeable in what you're talking about, either by being an expert in this field or researching a lot about it from good sources, and being fair and respectful to alternative views, because when you show like different views, you show the pros and cons of each view. You don't leave anything out. Presenting a lexically and grammatically coherent argument. You don't like jam words together fast so people don't understand. You actually like use correct words, correct grammar, and use like known sentences, and you don't use anything ambiguous, using various tones all along. Like you can't speak like this. Hi, this is the lecture. You are gonna talk about the ethos and the pathos and the log. No. You need to like severe the tone from excitement to being a little bit sarcastic, to other tones like being confused, being weirded out, etc., etc. So you can like show the audience that you know how to speak and know what you're talking about. We have the third appeal, which is the pathos, the use of emotion to move the audience and convince them. Like, let's look at this ad. This ad is saying, showing a crying baby, probably a very sick baby. The ad says, he's so sick, he could die before you get to work. So he is stating that the baby has very little time to live, and they are mentioning extra details like a baby in Nairobi dies every 6 minutes in Bangladesh because of healthcare is out of reach, and you can donate £5, etc., by texting baby to this number, etc., etc. And let's focus on some things. Like when he is mentioning the baby, he's just talking about the baby. He's not mentioning random stuff or random other donations. No, he's talking about this specific topic. Save the children. Here is the poster here. No child porn to die. Everything is related to the baby, and nothing like an extra advertisements or a shameless plug, etc., etc. We like notice something. Some people might have a question for like the pathos. They say, using feelings, emotion, isn't that like a bit of a trick to make people believe something that is not believable? Well, the answer is yes and no. Why? Because using emotions in certain situations is actually useful and actually needed, like this one, like this example, like clear as a sun example right here. This is the correct use of pathos, of feelings, moving the emotions. It is needed here. But there are some examples like, let's say a student is trying to convince a professor to move his grade from a D to a C by saying he would lose his scholarship. That's reasonable. And he would shatter his grandma's dreams. Like, any professor, if you say that to him, they're going to be like, okay, the scholarship might be understandable, but what does shattering your grandma's dreams have to do with giving you extra credit? That is not a reasonable use for pathos. A reasonable use for pathos is only used when it's used in a legitimate cause like this, or something like very legitimate, like giving you extra credit is extremely hard, like something that most people don't succeed in, but you can use it, but in very, very specific situations, like advertisements for donations, advertisements for etc., etc. That is when pathos becomes like legitimate or illegitimate, so be careful about that. We are going to like talk about what is needed for a pathos. Detailed, concrete languages, from adverbs to adjective to action verbs, like here in this example, like they use different colors for different things. Like, he is so sick, He could die in yellow color, like it's like a lighter color. It's more available for the eye, so it's like more seen. And they said like in the important part, text baby in the yellow color, and the number of the texting make it more appealing and available for the eye. They used like correct use of words and text color. Specific real life examples and illustrations. Of course, we go back to the good example here. This is a baby crying in microbe. He is crying from illnesses, so they used a correct example and images. And this whole example is just a whole image. So this is like the ideal or the almost ideal use of the pathos. And why did I say almost? Because nothing is really perfect in life. Everything has a flaw. So I prefer to say almost ideal. And just a quick note for the examples of the pathos, they are gonna take like time for me to summarize, and right now it's like 10:30 p.m. It's gonna be hard for me to concentrate on them. So anyways, they are easy. They are like this example, exactly like this example that I explained a little while before, and they don't worry about them. Like, you can solve them on your own and ask me about them if you want to, but they are extremely easy, or relatively easy to know and realize what is a good pathos and what is not. So we're gonna move to the fourth appeal, which is the kairos, the timeliness and fitness of arguments. So kairos means, it's a word in Greek that means season or opportunity. To think kairotically is to be attuned to the total context of the situation in order to act in the right way at the right moment. Like, if I'm talking about, like I said before in the beginning of the video, deforestation, I'm gonna mention a story of some people who restore the forest. That is a correct use of kairos, because that is something I use in the right time at the correct occasion. And if you remember the soapstone, which is the subject, what is the main idea? The occasion. Kairos is representative of the occasion on the soapstone. And if we continue on the rest of the soapstone, the A represents the audience. What is who are the intended readers? And we have the P, which represents the purpose. What is the purpose of the essay? Is to explain something, to clarify something, to inform, etc., etc. And we have S, the speaker, who is telling the story. Is he a businessman, an author, etc., etc. And we have the tone. How does the writer or the speaker use their words? Are they aggressive? Are they demanding? Are they using an angry tone? Are they using a calm tone that doesn't have any anxiety in it, and etc., etc. Some examples on kairos is these three common examples: political essays in local newspapers, and the 2013 film Hair, and commercial/ads. So we start with the political essays. Political essays, you might what does political essays have to do with newspapers, man? They are not really relevant. No, if you open a newspaper, you will say that some certain event happened. So a writer of the newspaper will try to integrate their message with the day's news, so their opinion has some kind of relevance. That is for political essays. And we have the 2013 film Hair, which deals with artificial intelligence and the increase of artificial intelligence. And this movie was actually quite brilliant to release in 2013, because in 2013 a lot of people had cell phones, smartphones, and it's starting impacting the world heavily. And people were starting to sit on the phones more occasionally, stopped going outside, loneliness and depression increased. So that movie was the perfect example of the use of kairos, which is the timeliness and fitness of one certain subject, which is the movie in the 2013 period. And sometimes kairos doesn't have to be something globally known. It can be created. In commercials, they will say, you need this product right now. It can clean your kitchen in 10 seconds. They will create a situation, a special situation for you to buy. Or the stock will run out. You need to buy it now. They're still creating a special situation. So that is the one use of the kairos. So we reach the finale of this lecture. This was a quick review. The doctor like explained it in an hour and a half. I explained it in like an hour or 45 minutes or 50 minutes. Like I was trying to summarize as much as I can, but maybe I like took my time a little bit. I hope this video helps you. If there is anything non-clear, please DM me right away. Don't be shy and don't feel sorry for DMing me. I am already tired enough. You won't make that much of a difference, believe me. Take care of yourself. I wish you all the best and I hope this video was useful to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.